Hey there, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey here today. We're here on the Outliers Edge Roundtable, where we bring together extraordinary outliers who can continue to shape and expand the way you think by just sharing how they're living their life, how they're building their businesses, and how they're increasing their impact out in the world. Today, we have four outliers here that are down to play the game, and I'd love for you to get to know each and every one of them. We'll start off with Kristen, and then we go to Gary. Can you let us know for each? Let's start off with you, Kristen. Can you let us know about you and the game that you're currently playing?
Sure. My name is Kristen Crockett, and I am a coach and a facilitator, and I grow leaders. And so a huge part for me is I meet people where they are. I help them get out of the shoulds and get into being their authentic selves and really understanding who they are, what lights them up, and how they want to grow.
Awesome. I'm glad that you're here. Let me go to Gary and then Akinseli.
Hey guys, I'm Gary. I'm from Central West New South Wales, which is just outside of Sydney, across the Blue Mountains by about 2.5 hours. So I live on property, so I run a cattle business, and that's my afternoon work. My morning work is I run a podcast called the Mojo Sessions, and I interview people who I think are pretty good at what they do. And then, having done that now for quite a while, I curate all the thinking of the best thinkers into usable pieces that I can help either companies with or individuals with. So that's my inside work in the mornings, and the outside work in the afternoon is working on the farm.
I'm going to want to explore some of that there, how you're able to play in the balance of that. I like that altogether. Well, thank you so much, Gary. Thanks for bringing yourself into here. Akinseli and then Michel.
All right, thank you, everybody. And my name is Akinseli Abiola, and I run Biola's Nugget Diet. Basically, Biola's Nugget Diet is all about self-development because one thing I'm really passionate about is developing ourselves. Because when we develop ourselves, it tells on our society, it tells on our economy, and that's how we grow, that's how we develop personally and also our economy too. So I'm really passionate about self-development, and I've been trying to speak to people about it, even myself, because it starts with me. And really, that's me, that's who I am.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michel Gonzalez. Thank you so much for your time. So what I do is I have my own business called Niiamah, and I enjoy sharing individual story by empowering them. I also have my own podcast, which is Odyssey of Oneness. And in this podcast, we talk about the struggles of identity and rebuilding that with your story, the truth, and what we can create. So I work a lot with personal development and with men and women as well. I host workshops to empower yourselves. They're usually during the full moon. So it's all about releasing who you thought you were and creating this new persona of who you are and what your reality can be shaped once you tap into that. So thank you so much for having me today.
Well, I'm glad that all of you are here. Thanks for making the time for this here. Talking about making the time, Gary, there's something you're saying about your afternoon and your day that or in your morning that got me thinking. So Outliers here, we are multi-talented, multi-passionate, and are often involved in many different things. I promise you, I would not have thought that you were on a farm otherwise. So I want to just start off here with just getting a sense from each of you how you are able to blend the various things that you do into what you do now, and in particular, how you're able to make it all work with your time and your schedules and stuff like that. So, Gary, since you got me thinking about this question to start out with, why don't I come to you? Because it feels like there are two completely different things that you have going on, and somehow you're making it all work for you.
It started many years ago. I've always been good at seeing what I want to do and then being able to execute. And in fact, I had the American dream of owning a ranch on a trout stream, raising cattle. So I had that dream. And so that was one part of it. And then the other part of it was I've always enjoyed the interview process, like the Larry Kings and Dan Rathers and Oprahs and the way they interview, and then being able to share and curate that thinking. And it really started with thinking about what is it, what could I visualize that I want for my world, my perfect day, perfect week, perfect month, and how do I blend those things? And it's just through trial and error that I decided that it was inside work and outside work, because you need to be focused on the thing you're doing at the time. And when you're working with cattle in the yards or in the field fixing fences, you can't be really thinking about something else. So it started with being able to see what I wanted to do, and then being able to step back and say, well, how do I do that? And then testing some things. And in this day and age where you can do so much remotely, it made sense. It was more so than me working out how do I split my day into intentional things that I could do. So that's why it's 6 in the morning now. I start early. I'll work through until lunchtime, have a good feed, then I go outside, but I can completely be with the animals or the outside world in the afternoon. I don't have to worry about phones and emails and Zooms and everything else. So I think in answer to your question, it started by knowing and being able to see what I wanted, and then being able to say, well, it isn't two separate things. It's just life. It's just how do I want to set up my life to have the blend of the things that I want that fits into a day, and being able to turn up for, my family, my wellness, and how does it all fit into it. So that's been the journey, and I keep, tweaking as I go along. But it's great, and I love my outside work.
Thanks for that, Gary. It's making me smile because it's making me think of different ways that I want to go and play some, put some things together. Michel, why don't you share with us here, like how do you blend all your multi-passionate, and how do you constructively, practically, give room for it to live?
I would have to add in that you do need a lot of grace and patience, because not everything is going to go the way that you planned it. And I learned that about 2 years ago when I just started off this journey as being a coach. Um, being a coach is one of one of the titles that I've stepped in, but the reason why I stepped into that is because I love being a daughter and I love being a sister. And those two have shaped my world so much to create this lifestyle. So my lifestyle is built on passion and purpose. Not only am I an empowerment coach, but I'm also a behavioral therapist. So I work with children who have autism. I'm a tribe member for a nonprofit organization called We Explore Earth. So we host about 12 events throughout the month. And I'm a human being. So I think those titles really, they don't coincide with each other, but I think with my lifestyle, it has brought up and blossomed who I am and what I want to create. So there's definitely a lot of nitpicking on what I want to create and how it can benefit individuals. I'm on other people's time at the end of the day and what they need and what they desire. So to create that, I do need to discipline a lot of my time. So that means waking up in the morning, making sure I have a good meal, and the meals and my works need to lift what I'm doing. So I make sure I also eat vegan, and I have a lot of products that are organic so they can fuel me. I noticed that when I wasn't eating good and I was just eating, fast food and not using my time and not sleeping, it really messed me up mentally and physically. Now that I'm able to gain all of that and understand where I'm coming from as a daughter, as a sister, as a coach, and as a therapist, I noticed that I'm able to create so much more. So the one thing that I enjoy in my life is going outdoors and being in nature. I go on a week voyage out in the forest. I usually do
Wait, that.
yeah,
Yeah.
backpacking and hiking, and it has allowed me to open my mind to be fully myself and also to give back to other people, because I know as coaches, we can get drained very easily. As host, we can get drained very easily. So I know there needs to be a lot of grace and a lot of patience. So I'm glad that I can share that with you today.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that in here, Kristen. I'm curious for you here, how are you blending things together, and you might be with you, might be with your clients. Just really curious about how do you live out that multi-passionate, multi-talented side.
Yeah, so it's something that I've always done. I am a person who, I get bored easily. And
Mm.
so I love having a lot of things going because it makes me feel like, I am moving forward. So, and I also my taste change, right? So I'm always looking for new things, and I'm always looking for where my energy flows. What's going to fill me up? What's going to make me feel like I have swallowed sunshine? And that is ultimately what I do. But the way that I do that is also having a lot of strategic rest. So I go to Reiki once or twice a month. It is the thing for me that makes me feel like I've had a massage and that I am taking time for myself. And the more rested I am, I find that I am actually able to do my job even better. So the other thing that I do is I plan vacations. So in December, for example, I am off for almost 3 weeks, because that's my time to really recharge and reset for the rest of the year.
So you just said something, and I love it. Love being on Outliers Edge, because Outliers Edge people just think and go through life very differently. You just said swallow sunshine, and it was just a Tuesday to you. He's like as if we all like do that on a regular basis. Help us understand what swallowing sunshine like means to you.
Yeah, it's one time when I was in college, I went to school in New Orleans, and I went and sat on the bench one day, and I could just feel the sunlight. Like, I just closed my eyes and I could feel the sunlight just pouring over top of me. And for me, that's the best feeling in the world. When you feel like you have swallowed sunshine, it's like it lights you up from the inside out. You can't stop talking about it. Like, people just see it in you. They see your energy and they're attracted to you. And meaning, if you are doing a project, they want to be a part of it, right? And so I think that that's the thing. Like, that's the goal. That's the key in life, is to really find what feels like swallowing sunshine for each of us. And that is our passion, and it leads to our purpose.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I asked that, because you said it and I was just like, oh, that is different. I like this. I like that. That's an ability I would like to have. You also talked here, Kristen, about some component of like you like doing new things. You get bored really easily. And now I'm asking for me here, because one of the things that I've been trying to navigate here as an outlier is like the idea of like shiny object syndrome, the idea of like being able to do a whole lot of different things, but not really getting great at it. And in particular, looking at it when it comes to the results I want to have as a leader, as a business owner, and in making my impact, like being able to see things all the way through from beginning to end. Right. So I would love to get your thoughts on this here. Let's start off with we'll see who wants to. Kristen, you already unmuted, so we'll come to you. Then maybe we'll come to Akinseli. But I'm very curious about how you navigate this component of seeing new things, getting bored easily. How do you create system and infrastructure to be able to just keep moving forward while you're also changing things up?
Okay,
Kristen,
so
yeah,
for
get
okay,
Akinseli, please.
okay. So for me, it starts with myself. Within me, I check myself if I'm cool with it, if it is something I really want to do, because I believe that everything starts from yourself. It's just about me. Am I happy doing this? If I am not, why should I? And if I can, why can't I? So one thing I really want to do is check within myself if this is truly what I want to do, and that's what I've been doing. And another thing is improving myself, because one thing about human beings is who you are yesterday should be different from what you are today, especially when you've gotten to a point where you are checking your list and like, okay, this wasn't right yesterday. Today, this should be right. So that's another thing I used to do to, just check myself, ensure that everything starts with me, deliver my best, be consistent in things too that I do, even if consistency is very difficult. I don't know if anybody has actually been in that situation where you're trying to do things and you're not consistent in doing it. So one thing I've always been doing is to be consistent, to check within myself, because it's me first, right? And be sure that I'm happy with it.
Awesome. Kristen, Gary, Michel, like any of you have any thoughts on that?
I can jump in.
Please.
I think for me, when you talk about Gallup strengths, consistency is my number 34. And that
So is
is
mine.
Yeah. So once you realize that, I know that it takes much more energy for me to be consistent. So what I do, for example, is I don't ever hold myself to something that's strict. So if I'm saying that, hey, I want to exercise more, that means that maybe I do a yoga class, maybe I walk, maybe I am stretching, maybe I'm outside my backyard. It can mean different things. And so in that way, you can be more consistent, but not in the way that is traditionally thought of. But also, too, I think that when you are passionate about something, like for me, I'm going to finish anything that I am passionate about, right? So that's the thing. And then I also think delegating. So making sure that there are people who are really great at finishing things and being consistent. And if you hire them on your team, then they are the ones that can help you see something through from beginning to end.
Nice. I haven't brought up the strength finders in a while, and so when you bring it up here, it's making me think. Outliers, if you're not familiar with it, Gallup Strength Finders is an assessment that you can take, and it has helps you find out your 34 strengths. It says everything's a strength, it's just like in different order, and with one being your top strength and 34 being your lowest strength. So when Kristen said consistency being her lowest, her 34th strength, there's some kind of alignment there. Gary, I'm curious for you, like what's popping off for you? What's flowing for you from any part of this conversation so far?
It's a big topic. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in that. I don't think it's a sort of a surface level thing. The something you said about wanting to do lots of different things. I think I would, as a reference, I would look at David Epstein's work in Range, which talks about being a generalist or a specialist. And the view today is being a generalist actually is not a bad thing, where you become good at something 80% as opposed to being just locked into one thing and becoming a specialist. So I think there's a resource upstream. That's a topic to unpack. I think with the other thing you said was not seeing things through. I think it's important to know what you want. And company owners struggle with this and individuals struggle with this, is that we don't really understand what we want. And we don't understand, everyone's used different terms for it, but what's important to you, what you value the most. And without knowing that, we seem to start and stop. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's fulfilling you, but most people are feeling unfulfilled. So I would say it's important to know, but I don't mean just a goal or just getting healthy. They're not specifics. It's working out what is important to you that you value. Then when a bright, shiny object arrives,
Hey there, I think we just lost Gary for a little bit. Can y'all hear me? All right, cool. So Gary will reconnect it, I'm sure. But he was saying here around like understanding what's important for you that you value, and I think that really like plays itself out in like a very meaningful way here.
then you got the
Okay, looks like we're coming back in. Gary, can you hear me? All right. Outliers, we're going to let Gary come back into the mix. I like to keep things real. You're going to see this in our conversation and such.
And how are we going to go about doing it?
In just a little bit, you're going to see it all come in together here. And I don't cut these things out here. And the reason I don't do this is because I feel like a lot of us keep ourselves from starting because we're like, what if, or everything has to be perfect. And I think like the real thing is like, this is it. And look at us. Like we have like a lot of different leaders who are just like going with it. Like we're all good. Maybe we can just talk to this a bit here, but we're like, because Gary's been really good. He talked, even his first response was like, I saw the vision and I created it, Let's talk a little bit here about when you have a vision of something, and the vision that you have ends up being completely different from what it is that you actually wanted at the end or what you thought it was going to be at the end. I'm seeing some nods here, so I've seen some resonance. Is there anyone that would like to get us started on this question? Just curious how you're playing it out.
Yeah, I can jump in here.
Thank you, Michel.
So originally I joined Dharma Coaching Institute so I can find a coach. I was like, you know what? My world is messed up. I need to figure out what I actually want in my life. And the thing that this coach mentioned to me, she asked me like, what is it that you truly desire in your life? It wasn't a job. It wasn't money. It was just to be with my family. So my family's purpose has always been trying to find each other. that's our journey. That's our destiny. We've always been trying to find each other. We were separated when I was 2 years old and when I was 22 years old. And that's where my story just starts unraveling of like who you are during your struggles. So as I got my certification as a life coach, I felt like an imposter. I was like, who am I to be teaching other individuals when my life looks like shambles right now? And that's when I started uncovering my shadows. What can I create? Who am I? What does my life, how can I desire more from my life and still be accepting who I am at this moment? So originally I became a coach for one-on-one individuals so I can help them through their identity crisis. And now, looking back at it, I host group workshops where I get to help individuals uncover their truest potential. So never in a million years would I thought I'd be hosting workshops, coming onto podcast and speaking about my journey. But let me tell you that once you start networking and meeting the right people and actually showing up, even if you don't feel like 100%, your life starts shifting and changing. And that's where I want to say thank you for everybody who shows up for themselves, because if it wasn't for them, then that moment, that spark, it doesn't get sparked, right? That fire doesn't get sparked up until you start meeting other like-minded individuals. And all of our journeys are not similar, but we are all on the same path to enlightenment. So I think that when you start looking at like the bigger picture of what the spectrum is, yes, we have one specific goal, but that goal has 30 different things for us. So you can really just start picking and choosing what you want in your life and how it shapes it, because it's always going to be different, but it's always going to be better. You're going to learn, you're going to grow, and you're going to adapt to this new environment.
Awesome here. Welcome back, Gary. We're looking at a place where when your vision of something ends up coming out differently than your reality, and how you go and navigate that here. And it was inspired here with you had a great response, and your vision of what was going to take place ended up moving. I keep these things in the conversations to show like this is what really happened. I think there's a lot of production that's out there, and I like to see how we navigate it. So, Kristen, maybe you can share with us here something where it either might have looked like a failure on the outside, or you might have had a vision of something there and you navigated walking through. So that if any outliers listening and thinking to themselves, but what if they can be like, well, yeah, well, I remember when Kristen had to go through it. You mind sharing a story there?
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of stories, right? Where something that you tried just didn't work out. And I can tell you, like, the thing that I always think about is my wedding. And we had almost 300 people coming. And it was actually at the Navy Yard. And if y'all remember, in DC, there was a shooting, the Navy Yard shooting, a mass shooter. So my wedding was canceled. And it ended up being rescheduled someplace differently. And it ended up being even better than before. And I always keep that in mind. Like, there are times where, of course, you have these mistakes when you start off in business and you try something and no one signs up or it doesn't work. And then you learn about messaging and marketing and all of these things, right? And everything that I have tried that has not worked out, I have come back and reworked it, and it shifted and changed and morphed. And to me, there's a lesson in when things don't work out. It's just a whisper in, mistakes are the whispers in the right direction, right? And I think that is what I always think about, that it just means that it's meant to be something different and meant to be something better. And I always keep that in mind.
I can tell anything coming off to you in this conversation here.
Okay, one thing I would want to say is everybody has expectation. Like for me personally, I have expectations, and most of the times they are not met. And am I a failure like that? No. One thing I would always want to say is, I think Michel once said, just pick out what you can, pick out the necessary goals. Like the first thing is, what do you want to achieve first? Then you start sorting all of this thing out. For me, what works for me is commitment. I am committed to, doing something that I am passionate about, and I really want to do it. And I think I failed before. Yes, I have. I can even say with my podcast, I just created two episodes, and it's been so long I've published another episode. Why? I paused. I wouldn't say I quitted. I just paused. And it's okay to pause, because sometimes, if you cannot do something right, you can do it maybe later, but you do it best. You understand? So if you can't do it right now, don't just do it at all. So that's one thing that has actually pushed me. One, commitment in whatever you are doing, and you obviously achieve every of your goals. Thank you.
So there's, as you're saying this, it makes me go back to something that Gary brought up a while ago, which is you brought up testing. You're like, and you're like, hey, I've been iterating on this. I'm still trying to get this right. I think this is like a fun place to play at with us here, because I'm thinking about the outliers who, again, like see, I know where it is. The people who are listening to us, a lot of them have gotten to a place where they've already created success in their life, right? In one shape or form. Like it's not like a specific one, but like for them, they're like, finally, I have something steady. My business has taken off, or my viewership has taken off, or I finally gotten the role that I wanted, or I finally like in the place with the relationship, so on and so forth. And they get to the place where they're like at a crossroads to say, but if I really am true about what is important to me, there's something more that I want to go for, something higher than this. And we run it. The crossroads they're at is like, do I continue to trust myself and go about it in the way that I like would feel would work, or do I shift and go and see like what do other people say work? Let me go find someone else's system to come into, so on and so forth. And so I feel like this conversation around testing would be really beneficial. I don't want to have it like the one-on-one perspective where it's like it's important to test. That's not that. What I think I'll be really curious as to like how you all like, Gary, I'll start with you. Like how you like the meta part about like your process of iteration. What is your process of testing? How like do you set out specific goals and then say like this is what I'm trying to get as a result, and then continue to iterate from there? Very curious here because I get the idea, and then but the actual implementation actually like feels different, and also like practically speaking it's like, am I just like choosing what feels good right now, or is this actually a better solution? So Gary, can I start off with you on it, because you got me thinking about testing to start out with.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think upstream of all that, a guy called Jay Ferrugia, who is credited, he's been in the fitness industry, wellness industry for 40 years. And he said to me on the Mojo sessions just last month, he's credited with starting the group fitness movement. And when I asked him about the famous Bruce Lee quote about it's not the daily addition, but subtraction, hack away at the unessentials. I asked him about hacking away at the unessentials, his answer was it wasn't something he took out. It was more so staying with the same five fundamentals that he valued, but then how he expressed them would change. So back to what Kristen said before about wellness and wanting to have a fitness value around fitness is testing, well, what would it be like if I put on a backpack? What would it be like if I went for a hike? What would it be like if I changed my workout routine? What would it be like if I started Pilates? So you take the same fundamental, but then look at different ways that you can express that. So as a coach, it's looking at the fundamentals of what you stand for, and then looking at how, and I think that's where the testing comes in, is the testing comes in order to grow. Some of it's going to work, and I really like Kristen's story about the wedding. Some of it's going to work, some of it's not going to work. But the testing is a fundamental I believe in. Is there a different way I can express that? And I think the one thing I find important with that idea of things not working out and testing is somebody's always watching. And so as a company owner, you've always got a team member watching, and they need to know that you know what the dream is, the vision. They need to know there is a strategy of how to get there, but they also need to know the owner has got the comfort in themselves and belief in themselves to test and try new things. That sets a tone for those people in the organization to have their own creative approach to the world and to problem solve. And if nothing else, I think the important thing is that children get to see it, because if children do the same thing as everybody else day in, day out, don't have the courage, the belief in themselves to test possibilities, then they are going to be like most. And most are living in a world where they feel unfulfilled. So I think it's not just about testing and chasing squirrels. It's really about knowing what's important to you, what are the 5 fundamentals, and then saying, well, how might I express that differently to grow? Some will work. If it doesn't work, that's a growth opportunity. If it does work, that creates its own opportunity. So I think it's a big question that ties a lot of this stuff together.
I really appreciate this here, and I'm going to hear from you all in a bit. But one of the things I think I'm getting about you, Gary, and part of the way that you see the world is like, one, it's, to me, it feels like there's a lot of alignment. Like if I had to think about you, it's like you know what it is that you want, but it's not just like, well, it's just external things. Like what's actually important to me. And then from that place, if I'm getting you, it's like you're like I'm willing to identify some of the key elements about what's important to me around this, and then find the expression that like actually lines up for me. And once that happens, I'm willing to say, great, I've tried a couple different things. This is the one that actually feels really good. I'm going to keep going in this direction and keep building and growing from there. Gary, you didn't say that. That was my interpretation of what you put in. But like, how does that feel as I say that out loud?
I'll give you a real life example.
Thank you.
I interviewed a guy at the end of season 3 called Matthew Dix, who's a world moth storytelling champion. The guy just tells the most beautiful stories, and he wins countless awards for his storytelling. He's got a new book out called Stories Sell, which is about how you create stories in business. And a real life example is how Kristen answered that story, because when you ask that question about failure, Kristen, that story could set up an hour of content as a coach. Personal story, failure, what's it mean? How do we apply that? How does it work with children? How does it work with a team? And so that's something I've redone all my keynote speeches over the last few months based on how do I start with a cracking story that's personal, that's got a so what, that relates back to any corporate strategic issue. Or so being able to take a fundamental, which is curating the thinking of the best thinkers to help people, but how might I express that differently? In Matthew Dick's world as a storyteller, it's profound. And the impact it has when you can, number one, you start collecting stories, which is the whole thing. But you look up Matthew Dick's and Homework for Life. You start collecting stories that you can then apply, and that changes your view of how you see the world and how you start curating and collecting stuff you see and feel. But then how you use that and how that can impact children. I'm even starting to work with teachers now on how they might do that to encourage children to collect stories, good and bad, that they can then use to illustrate their own world. But Kristen's example of the wedding, that's gold, and how you could apply that. So that's a real life example I'm going through right now as to how I'm starting to collect stories, where I put them, how I sort them, to be able to change the introduction to all my work is to say, well, here's a story that illustrates it in my mind that someone can relate to. Story selling is so underdone. And as Matthew would say, in the corporate world, we talk about stuff that's boring. Stories sell, people remember stories. I will never forget Kristen's story.
Thank you, Gary. I'm going to open it up for you all here. Yeah, Kristen, I see you unmuted here. Let's just we'll have a little bit more of an open session here. So, Kristen, why don't you go and able to see how things keep evolving?
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Gary. And that's what I was going to say is like stories actually connect. They allow us to connect with people in a way that is internal. It is real. It is tangible. And then it also like allows us to start thinking about other things, right? Like our own stories that apply to that specific story from someone else. So I think it's that big connector. But, you know, just to go back to something that we were talking about a little bit earlier, just about like, well, is it, you know, how do you test and what do you do? Like for me, it's about listening with all of my senses. There are things that people are going to say. Like if you say, hey, is this working for you? Is this good? They're going to be people who are like, yeah, it's working. Or people that are going to literally their body is frozen and they're going to still say, yeah, this is working. So, you know, in their body language, that this is not working for them. So it's a lot of it too is, you know, asking the right questions. And, you know, even sometimes people are comfortable saying something in front of a group that they then are going to tell you the real, you know, in a private moment. So I think it's always listening with all of your senses for what people are saying, their additions, what you could do differently, but also not being tied to one specific thing, which means I enter the day not with a checklist. Some people enter with a checklist of things that they want to do. I enter with a priority list. Like, this is a priority for me today. And if I don't finish it for today, then it goes on tomorrow's priority list. So it's kind of being more open to how things are going to come to you, how they're going to shift, how they're going to change, and not being tied to one specific thing.
Awesome. Akinseli, anything that's coming to you on this?
Okay, yes. What Kristen said, I feel like there are different categories of people, and when we know ourselves, we'll be able to tell who we really are. There are some people that, you know, when they have pools of things to do, they just say, "Oh no, I can't do this. I can't try." You understand? And there's another category of people who says, "Okay, I think I can try," but there's no commitment. There's also another category of people who want to try, who are, you know, committed. They have the zeal, but at the long run, they just, you know, they just lose out. And there's probably, I'll just say, the last category of people who would always give 100% to whatever they are doing. And you know, when you set, as Christian said, when you set a goal that is the major thing, that is the priority for you, what you need to do is to put in your best, put 100% of yourself, put it to that goal, and you just, you know, that you just want to achieve it, because that's the major thing for you. So for me, I feel like when we identify who we are, when we identify what works for us, we'll be able to move on.
Nice, nice. You know, Michel, I want to come to you in a bit. That I want to bring in a different question. The Right now, we've been able to share things that around the way that we think and about different stories of things that we've done in the past. I want to go into, because this is Outliers Edge. I want to see what's on your edge right now, and see how you're playing with it. And so, hmm, I knew the question I was gonna ask, but now that I've framed it this way, I kind of want to play in this place. Um, we talk about two different types of edges, an inner edge and an outer edge. Gary, you might appreciate this, the inside work and the outside work, right? But I'll be curious, can you share with us something that you are creating right now where you feel like you're on your edge? It might be a project that you're bringing to life, a vision that's out there. That might be something from the external perspective, or it might be something that you're working on within you right now to say like, hey, this is the edge that I'm leaning into. You know, I know for me, one of my big edges was like to it was like around like how if I can just express exactly what I felt. I kind of called it like just like the word itself is it, but it was like a grittier version of me. So Michel, I'm curious for you, like with what you stand for and what you're building out in the world, what's an edge that right now you're currently pursuing and allowing yourself to walk on?
Ooh, I love this question because I am currently building on sensuality, feeling comfortable with who I am and what I create. This journey started off when I started doing yoga, and some of the yoga poses just felt too sexy. I was like, oof, I don't know how I feel about this doing it in front of my family. And now I've been introduced to rose gold goddesses and, you know, goddess retreats where I've been so comfortable in my body that I'm just like, I am me, what I'm doing. If it feels sexy, good, go for it. If it feels right, good, go for it. And it's it has to do a lot with trying to redefine these words, right? Entrepreneur, what's your niche? There's so many things out there that people start dialing into just one thing when there's like a multitude of things that feel good. So for me right now, sensuality feels amazing. And I feel sensual when I'm in my plants and I'm just gardening and feeling that up. Or I'm also feeling sensual in my place of work when I'm working with my kids. And I wanted to tap into like the testing area because most of it, I have to look at it as a task analysis, right? Everybody learns differently. If you're a visual learner, if you're an auditory learner, most of my kiddos, because they have autism, we work with different types of analysis. So we go with gesture, we go with prompting, we go with positional. So if you tell somebody to do something a certain way, sometimes it won't click unless you ask it a different way. So for some of my kids, it's a verbal, like I can tell you, put on your socks. For somebody else, they need a visual because the verbal is too much and we need a visual. Right. So that's where I'm learning with my sensuality. What can I add into my life that is coinciding with the things that I need in my life? So if I need to ground myself, I'm going to go to my garden. If I need to share my story, I'm going to go to my podcast. If I need a girls' night out, I'm going to go to my goddesses and relive those experiences in my body so I can continue sharing those moments in my time. But something that I'm also creating right now are workshops for more goddesses. So I am definitely bringing in that aspiration of wanting to feel comfortable with the body and allowing that sacred pause to just show up. If I don't feel good, I don't feel good. And I'm going to say it like that. I'm not going to be like, I'm fine. That doesn't work for me anymore because I'm not allowing myself to be true. And that's what I want to create for my world, a world that is truthful. I don't care if I'm not feeling sexy or I am feeling sexy. I care enough to share it and to speak up so I can be human. And that's the life that I desire to be, a human being, fully showing my emotions and showing where I'm at so other people can feel true to themselves.
Thank you, Michel. Like, I like playing off this area. I am curious for you all here. Well, one of them is just like, thank you for sharing like the edge that you're actually playing at. You know, I'm curious for you all. What else is popping off for you? Like, Kristen, what's an edge that you're currently leaning into?
For me, it's joy. I really do help people uncover their joy. And it is something that is super hard for hard workers, right? For high achievers. And for me, it is doing that by absolutely adding as many moments of joy into my life as possible as well. And, you know, I think I'm always on the edge of things. Always, because I'm always trying to, I think I've just always been that way. Like ever since I was a kid, it's not, it's kind of asking, it's experimenting. That's what I want to say. Like saying, what if you add cinnamon to this cookie? What if you add bacon? What would you get? You know? So I think I tend to always do that. That puts me on the edge, and I'm drawn to innovation. I'm always drawn to transformation, which is what I do with people and organizations. And so for me, it is like, how can we shift something without making it feel like you've jumped into cold water, but how can we feel like you're dipping your toe into something and kind of shifting and transforming things? And so I think the biggest thing going on for me right now, which is brand new, is just relaunching a group called Sister Lift. And that is specifically for women who are 100% givers to everybody else in their life. What is it like to show up once a month just for themselves? And so it's kind of allowing people to experience this edge with me and to help people uncover their joy within it.
I love it. Lovely there. Y'all are playing the fun game. You're playing the fun game. I think we'll do this. We'll go to Gary, then we'll go to Akinseli, and then we'll wrap up the conversation from there. So curious about the edge that you're currently pursuing, Gary, and then yeah, why don't you let us know about that?
There's a lot, but I'll keep it really short. I am now, our daughter has gone to college, so we're now empty nesters. So the challenge now is, how do I manage the operating cattle property as well as be on the road with our travels? So that is that's something I'm working through at the moment. I'm a firefighter. I'm a senior deputy in a local fire brigade. So as I age, I am really looking to change how I work up in the gym in order to do what I do on the fire ground as I age. And also, we've had some pretty big fires here, and not like the California wildfires, kind of similar, but probably not as intense in terms of scale. But we've had some, Black Summer was pretty bad for us. And so being on the fire ground and remaining calm in the face of the fury of what now we've had some pretty intense fires is something that's been a really good learning for me and a good leadership lesson. And I think also probably the third thing, just quickly, is curating ideas so that we don't just consume, but it actually becomes part of the DNA of the brain. So I started a lot more commonplace journaling. Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain was an absolute game changer for me, to be able to curate and maintain the thinking and thoughts that I hear, the stories that I have. So I think they're the sort of three upstream big things that I'm working on. But I'm a bit like Kristen. I get bored, so I'm always testing and tinkering with new things. But they're probably three of the bigger ones that come to mind.
Definitely had myself muted there, so I appreciate it. Now I'm going to check this out. Building a second brain, like with there's some specifics that you were talking about, Gary. I'm like, how does he remember like all the conversations and everything? I'm like, that makes me want to tap into that. All right, that's that could be my next edge here, figuring out that second brain part. Akinseli, can you bring us home here with an edge that you're currently pursuing?
Okay, one thing I'm going to do is work on my abandoned projects. There are things where I've started and I don't have the consistency to push it out, to continue. So that's one thing I'm going to start with. And that's my podcast. I've released 2 episodes and, I said before I paused, I didn't quit. So now it's for me to re-strategize. It's for me to go back to the drawing board. It's for me to pick out things that works for me and just let the real me come out. And that's really what I'm going to be doing this time around. Work on my abandoned projects. As Kristen said, you don't have to to-do list. What you just need to have is the priority list. And that's one thing I'm going to pick out for me.
Probably like it's really fun doing this here because I get a lot of people who have started and come back into their podcast, and a lot of people come back and be like, I haven't really done that much with it, but now I'm really feeling it. So I can tell you I'm excited. Send us the episodes. Let us know when you get to 200, like just keep us in the game here. Thank you for bringing what you bring. I want to thank all of you for bringing what you brought to this conversation. Ultimately, the goal here is to continue to expand people's thinking and to see other ways that people are approaching their outlier game. And each of you are doing it both in your own wonderful ways, and I appreciate you doing that. What we're going to do is we're going to wrap up here with an invitation for each of you to share an insight that you got from this conversation. If you had one, if you didn't, that's fine. But an insight that you got from this conversation and the best way for outliers to continue down the journey with you. All right. And Outliers, if there's anything in this conversation so far that has made you feel like you were swallowing sunshine, please go ahead and find one person in your world and share this conversation with them. You can obviously share it out in some of the larger areas like social media and your emails and such. But like find one person where this was that you feel be really meaningful to share this with, and please pass this along. All right. So why don't we go here? We'll start wrapping up. Kristen, can you share with us an insight you got from this conversation, if you had one, and the best way for Outliers to continue with you?
Yeah, I absolutely. My insight is just how amazing it is to take people who are at the top of their game and then you have a whole panel of people. It has had my brain popping the entire time and I love the connection. So I think that is definitely my takeaway is for me, it's putting myself like I love it. And it's like, how can I do it more often, being around people all of the time in the age of working from home, right? And I think I invite you all as listeners to connect with me. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Instagram. It's the Kristen Crockett. And you can also reach me at kristencrockett.com and also on the Plastic Couch podcast. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for being here, Kristen. You're making me smile right now. Michel.
Oh my goodness, this was beautiful. So I appreciate everybody for showing up. One of the insights that I received for today is it's okay to take a second pause. It's okay to come back to your projects. It's okay to grow during that time period that you're away. And once you pick it up, there's going to be something different and something new for you guys to share. A way that you guys can connect with me is on my Instagram. It is Enlightenment. And on my podcast, which is Odyssey of Oneness with Michel Gonzalez. I do want to share that in January, I will be hosting a women's retreat, and it's all about coming back to your sensuality. So, for my ladies out there, my outdoor girlies, and individuals who would like to give themselves a space, an empowering space with other women who are going through the same thing, I open that space for you guys.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. And if you're listening to this in the future, this is January of 2025, right? So look out if you're listening to this later on, go see what Michelle's up to, just in case there's even more. I know there's gonna be more from there. Awesome. Akinseli, and then we'll wrap up with Gary.
All right, thank you so much for having me. Like, so beautiful to be here. One thing I learned from this session is it's okay to be yourself. The essence of our existence on earth is to be ourselves. And we should keep growing, we should keep improving to be the better person and not probably compare ourselves with what we are looking at or what we are saying. Ourselves, and ourselves. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Akinseli Abiola, on Instagram, Abiola, and my podcast, Biola's Nugget Diet. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And Gary?
I think that the thing that stood out for me was Kristen's story of the wedding. I mean, it just illustrates for me how easy it is to remember a story when there was a lot of conversation. But to me, it illustrates how a beautiful story can be memorable in a world of things that has a lot of talk, but not a lot of things that are memorable. So it's a really good story. That stood out for me. I'm easy to find. There's no one else spelt with my name. So you'll find me on LinkedIn pretty easily. In the podcast, where some of the people that I've mentioned today I've interviewed, like Tiago Forte, Building a Second Brain, you'll find in the Mojo sessions, and that's searchable on everything. So, but I appreciate you having me, guys. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
Yeah, it's great to be with you all. And I thank each and every one of you here. Gary, you've given me a style to go play with the future panel, which is like just the all stories panel. We'll see how that will play out. But I'm like, let's see. This might be the most memorable session yet. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for taking the risk. Thank you for showing up in the world and being you on the regular. I appreciate you. And I'm wishing you all the best from here. Until the next time we talk, be you on purpose. Journey on.